course, from our natal chart, in our growing up, as we all come through our parents. We don't get here because our parents are saints. We get here because they weren't saints. And we come through our mother. We come out of the womb. We get into the house. We come out of the backyard. We run into the rest of the world. But in that early stages, being at home, depending on our karma of our chart, the chart when you're born is the transits of your parents. So the transits going on get crystallized for a moment in time, and you represent that moment in time for them forever. But your chart, the aspects in it, are the transits of that person to their parents. So they act it out. So your mom becomes the moon, and your father becomes the Saturn, and your confidence gets built up in their relationship to each other. And your chart's the reminder of how together or not together they are. Remembering, of course, that by the time you're making love to someone and you're being together and you're making a baby, you're not in the most saintly place and the most detached place in life. You're on the opposite side. And then you find out you're in the animal, you're in the physical, and there's all these other patterns that come in. You're trying to bring up your kid, and you do it right or wrong. You have things that not all parents are trying to build up the kid's confidence. They're just trying to survive. Some people are constantly trying to build up the confidence in their kid. Some people have their confidence because of their kid and then expect the kid to live up to it. So what I'm trying to get to is that we have our own attitudes to kids. We have our own attitudes to confidence based on what our parents, how it reinforced it or dumped us or whatever. By the time I first found astrology, someone did my chart for me. I said, "You mean I'm supposed to be like this? I've been put down all my life for being who I was, and it's the first time I realized, no, that's my good energy. I'm supposed to use that." And I went, wow. Instead of being knocked around or hit around for doing anything with my confidence as a kid, I would get out of the house and go do things. But I rebuilt it as I go. But astrology really pointed out, wow, there were my handicaps, and I grew up with that. Yeah, that happened. And I built up my confidence in spite of that. Of course, I had to survive a lot of things that didn't reinforce my confidence, but it took me. But you still find things. I had sports at school. I had different things, and little things built up your confidence. Relationships, I really wasn't prepared for relationships well. So I had things where I thought I had great confidence, then I lost it and went up and down. We have fluctuations of confidence in our life. That's our sun and our life. He wants to transit to the sun and things to the sun. You'll see those fluctuations. The sun kinds of the ego, or the sun tends to think everything that happens is because of me. So anything that's bad is because of me. So our ego can positively or negatively have confidence or lack of confidence. We can hold on to it as if this is the important thing, and we can be totally wrong. But a little bit of light, someone laughing, confidence breeds confidence. Light encourages light. So this is, the transits are happening the transit of the sun, this is 1 or 2 days, 2 or 3 days, not a big factor. They go by so fast, but they're there. There's just a texture that's there. But the longer term process is very significant and important. We really will begin to see the detailed, in-depth working of the development of our confidence when we get to the progressions of the sun, and watch how each day it moves 1 degree, and that affects each year. And each degree it moves after you're born is a year of your life, and we begin to see a longer term development and deeper meanings in this process. But on a day-to-day, on a yearly level, looking day-to-day to set up this calendar, that's your solar calendar that you can use, and you can write it in your calendar books. It's useful. It works. I mean, if you're trying to use it, I don't know how much you use it, but that's how I use it. I end up just watching, having my daily calendar, just a calendar with the boxes, and seeing what goes on it. And I don't always use it, but when it's there, I look at it and should I put appointment this day or that day, or should I? Especially if I'm trying to do a lecture or a performance or a talk, I try and see if I'm doing a webinar, what night of the week would be the best for me. I just don't state what night is most convenient. And I go, what night and what nights are going to be the most after I do the convenience. I look at which ones are, if there's a bad aspect, a really difficult aspect, and it's consistently being accentuated by the moon every week, I'm going to try and perhaps avoid that week, or get intense things to talk about on those weeks that happen. So the Yeah. When we're going into the inner cycles, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, we're not watching it. You don't watch the transit. You don't watch the sequential transits of them. They move too fast. They happen too fast. Even the sun is very fast and somewhat seemingly superficial because in the time of things, it's not extreme. A 3-day problem is not the same thing as a 6-month or a 2-year problem or crisis. But Venus, it's 7-8 months in a cycle. You know, Mercury's 3 months. The aspects last 2 or 3 days. Sometimes if they go retrograde, they can last longer, a bit longer. The Moon, an aspect lasts a few hours. So we can do a chart for a moment and we see their effects in a day, in that moment. But you don't really watch the sequences. There's too many of these sequences happening for mental cycles, for emotional cycles. You can watch them, but there's so many other things that we don't usually watch. We don't really learn that much from transits about those, except by the outer planet transits when they hit them and we get the pressure from them. And they're that's more the transit to our natal chart. So when we're working with transits, we're looking at transits to the natal chart, not transits to transits. That's another thing. That's history or politics or the world around you. But it's not. It doesn't really affect you if it's not touching you. It touches you when it touches your chart. So we're cutting. I mean, we have so many aspects. We have so many pieces of information. When we get to transits, we cut it down. We're only looking at the conjunctions, squares, and oppositions, the stress points, the turning points. We're only looking at 1-degree orbs to see how long these last. These and we're leaving at the sextiles, the trines. We're leaving at so many things that it's simplifying it. We're seeing the main things that stand out and letting the other things, they're there. There's something there. You can work at them, but it's not worth the attention on it. Like astrology keep growing and things add in stages. You're really going to learn about the Moon, Mercury, and Venus, these faster moving planets, when we get to progressions. In your natal chart, you understand them, and by progressions, you come to understand them because they're working with a slower amount of time. But by transits, they really move too fast, and they're just incidentals within the moment. If you're trying to set up a time for a party or for starting a business, then you're working on a natal chart for an event. Then they have their natal importance, and Mercury hitting a difficult aspect of Venus could be very important to avoid. That's in the transits to the transits. But the ones to your chart, I wouldn't, there's enough to look at that you don't get the time to go back. You can get the time and make it if you want to spend more time to go at it, but you're not going to get the same depth of information. They're usually dealable, these smaller time things, against the bigger cycles. So this is the, we've come from the Saturn. We spent a lot of time on Saturn. That's the main backbone of the transits. That's the discipline, the duty, the responsibility. Once you get your self-discipline, your duty, your responsibilities in order, then Jupiter has to align to that. And if it aligns to it well, it works really well. If it aligns to it badly, it doesn't. And then that guidance comes and affects the Mars. And of course, it affects the Sun too. The Sun is trying to be really everything should be shining off the Sun, including responsibilities. But in the transits, we just see a very fast pattern from the Sun, not extremes. So even when you're taking the Sun, you see the Sun's opposing Neptune. My Sun's opposing the Neptune in my chart. It's not like the Neptune is influencing the Sun. The Sun's hitting the degree that has a certain effect on that Sun, and it perhaps enhances or doesn't enhance that Neptune so much. But it's not like Neptune's opposing the Sun. It's not like the planet that's moving is just going by and having a passing influence. And a quick influence is like, it just quickly goes by. It's not a mainstream thing. So you're not going to read, you don't want to read too much into the Sun opposed Neptune. Oh, I can't do any Sun opposed. You don't want to over magnify those things. There's a slight tensity of intensity or confusion or power or shock that might be in the outer planets, or responsibility with Saturn. You're seeing a small phase that goes on, but the real issue is how your confidence is being tested as you go along. how you're growing, how you're stretching through it. And yeah, so this is probably as deeply as you would go into using the sun. Next week, and the rest of the class, we're dealing with, next 3 classes, we're dealing with Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. We're jumping out to the big outer planets that cause the extreme circumstance, extreme challenges. See, Saturn's the order, the structure, the duty, the law, the defensiveness to the universe is our self-discipline, our defensiveness. So Saturn guides, it's the key or the backbone to everything. Once you have your accomplishments or your disciplines in place, you're much more capable of dealing with the world than if you have no disciplines. Or no, and you can't accomplish that. You accomplish things you can't. But Saturn is sort of the duty or the responsibility. The other planets will always bring challenges that try and break down the Saturn to make the excitement more, to make the romance and adventure more, to make the power more. And they may give you something, but they take away from the Saturn, and sooner or later you have to come back and catch up to it. You're either working towards it or having to fix the vulnerabilities because of that. There's always Saturn work to do with the other planets. So Saturn is your defensiveness. A healthy Saturn is strong enough to stand and keep defensive enough to allow the bigger changes to come in and then to set itself back up again and still maintain its priorities. But so with the sun, I'm finished. But next week, we're going to deal with Uranus. And Uranus, it's 84-year cycle. So it's only going to make, you're going to do Uranus to the sun, Uranus to itself, Uranus to the angles. And we're going to talk about Uranus to Venus, to Mercury, to Mars. Like the outer planets have the biggest effect to the inner planets. The moon, the Mercury, Mars, Venus, Sun, Mars, they'll stand out. It's there with the others, but it's hard to be personally predictive about it. It's stages, not as personalized. But I want you to do Uranus to it, the conjunction squares oppositions to Uranus to itself. And there's going to be 3. It's going to go forward, back, forward for each of these ones. And then I want you to do Uranus to itself, Uranus to the angles, and Uranus to the sun. Yeah, so those are the 3 main focuses we're going to see. And we're going to work with next week. So there's not a lot. It's not going to take us. Mars was the most intensive one to calculate because there was so many going around the chart. But Jupiter was a bit more. But Uranus is only, if you live 84 years, you live 1 cycle. Neptune, Pluto, you never get the whole cycle. So there's not so many choices, but these other aspects last a longer time and sit there and bother us for longer periods of time. So we're going to, yeah, so that's basically where we're going to go. I'm going to finish the class a little early tonight because this is just where we are. I'll be sending you the links to download the video and also to download the spreadsheet. That'll let you do these, organize these calculations or the sun aspects. And then, but for next week, we're going on to Uranus, okay? And on these ones, you should very distinctly be able to see things for each of them. Like if there's 3 hits of Uranus, you should be able to see things distinctly related to each of them. Anything else? No, I think that's about it. So for once, I ran out of words beforehand. Okay, thank you, and I'll talk to you next week. Okay.